So, are you absolutely sure that alcohol is your problem? Most people think that quitting drinking is about not getting a hangover, being good, staying sober, oh, I'm off the booze this month, or I'm trying to be good, or even, oh, don't tempt me, I'm being sensible. But what if it's not that? At all? What if it's not about the actual drinking? Oh, what do you mean, Dan? How can quitting drinking not be about quitting drinking? Well, hang on, I'm coming to that. Get ready for this. Alcohol is not your problem. Alcohol is your solution. Let that sink in for a second. I'll wait, but just let that phrase sink in. Alcohol isn't your problem. Alcohol is your solution. Now that we're on the same page, what can we do about this? Well, I'm glad you asked. Stick around and we will dive deeper into this topic. So, who am I? I'm Dan Hunter. I quit drinking in 2017, and since then I've been helping guys and girls just like you get control of their problem drinking. AA didn't work for me. I didn't want a system where we looked backwards and we started beating ourselves up for things we did in the past. I wanted to look forwards, and I knew there was a better way than the kind of traditional methods, and I've managed to kind of hone in on a method that works probably more than 90% of the time for people. I've shrunk down that period that took me years. I've shrunk it down to just a couple of weeks to a couple of months of actually getting your mind right. So if that sounds like something that could be of interest to you, book a call with me below. There's no hard sell. We'll talk through what it involves, and if it's for you, great, we'd love to have you in the program. If it's not for you, no problem. We'll shake hands and move on. But either way, I'll give you some tricks and tips and things you can do to manage your drinking on your own. Anyway, let's get on with the video. So if alcohol isn't the problem, what is? Ask yourself this question: what problem does alcohol solve for me? Again, what problem does alcohol solve for me? And that question is the catalyst for everything. It starts you along the right path. It's not about whether you drink too much, because, we all drink too much. If you're watching this channel, chances are you probably drink too much. It's about why you want to drink in the first place. For most people that I work with, what they're looking for is an escape, maybe a buzz, an escape from anxiety, or just an escape from some problems or family issues they've got going on, even just things like loneliness and boredom. For myself, I drank because I was very socially anxious and just had very, medical grade anxiety that I was just self-medicating. And I've bumped into a number of people along the years that have had the same thing, but we all do it for different reasons, although a lot of them tend to kind of condense down into a few core issues that we can tease out over some time. And what I like to say is you don't really have a drinking problem, you have a life problem, if that makes sense. So life is your problem, drinking is your solution. Make sense? And the thing with alcohol is it works until it doesn't. I remember speaking to somebody a few years ago. I was sort of beating myself up and saying, oh, well, I don't know why I drink. And she said, she was actually a therapist, and she said, well, you drink because it works. And it's like, yeah, I do. But the problem with alcohol and drugs and things like that, although we're focused on purely alcohol here, is these things work until they don't. At a certain point, they stop working and they stop being as effective. Again, I'm guessing if you're watching this, you're probably around that point where you're starting to recognize that you can no longer sort of keep the tide back. The wall is crumbling in front of you and you're just sort of putting your finger in the wall, trying to stop the water coming through. And at some point, something's going to have to give. I can give you a real life example here. Well, I can actually give you two. The first example is John, and the second example is me. We had virtually the same makeup and the same patterns that we were repeating. Now, John runs a 7-figure consulting business. Super smart guy, clever, polished. You'd never really know from the outside that there was any sort of issue going on. Reasonably big company, staff, very polished. But by 7 p.m. every night, he was drinking beer, then he'd move to wine, and then it would get later in the night and he'd be reaching for the bourbon. And we got to the bottom of it, his kind of why, and it was to shut his brain off. He had such intense mental chatter that drinking just numbed all of that, and it just turned the volume down on all of this kind of noise that was going on in his head. He was a super successful guy that could, in a consulting way, could bring like all of these problems together and work out inventive solutions. So you can imagine there's a lot going on, and he was able to dull that by drinking. And it would always kind of start as one drink to unwind, but over time it becomes less and less effective, so you need more and more and more to kind of get that same calming effect. And probably much like you and much like me, because again I had the same sort of mental chatter and anxiety, we were asking, what problem does this solve for you? We're not kind of berating him and counting units of alcohol, or, you know, did you drink too much? Did you, were you a nasty person in the past? There's none of that. It's just, what is the problem that alcohol is solving for you? And with him, it was this intense mental chatter that we were able to replace with other things. We were able to get his mind into a much quieter place, because one thing that he didn't realize was that the alcohol, whilst it was dulling this kind of mental chatter, the next day it was ramping up anxiety, fueling his body with sugar. His brain was kind of firing at 1,000 miles an hour, and we were able to implement a number of relaxation strategies. Meditation, heavy workouts really helped him as well. Sauna helped him. So there's a whole bunch of things that we can do, but what worked for him won't necessarily work for you or me. This kind of realization gave him a lot more power. Like, we had a conversation that he was saying, like, man, drinking seems so stupid now. And that's the shift that we were able to make in a relatively short space of time. Now, is it easy? No, but it is straightforward. There is a process. We can A plus B equals C. There is a pathway to this. Now, as I say, it's not easy. If it was easy, we'd all be doing it. It is simple. And it's not really that hard if you want help. If you don't want help and if you don't want to stop drinking, then there's nobody in the world that can help you. It has to start with you. No one can make you do anything that you don't want to do. So the 3 things that we would go over in the program are, we would start by rebuilding your habits, we would shift your mindset, and we would rewire those emotional triggers. So those are 3 pillars that we will work on. And with those, you will be on such strong ground that you will have a lot to be able to build from. So there's not a lot of fluff in the program. There's not too much kind of woo-woo. It's quite practical, and it's not something that's going to be like journaling or just think yourself sober. It's not new age stuff. I would liken it to sort of high performance psychology or coaching. And as I say, I've spent the last 8 years honing this, working with different people, iterating. And I've now got it down to, I think, quite a fine art. What I like to do in all of these videos, I like to leave you with something that you can actually do on a practical, easy, day-to-day basis. I can give you something in this video now that you can do today for free, simply. Next time you're getting ready to have a drink, or next time that trigger crops up, just do me a favor and just take a minute, take a breath, and just sit in the moment with it. Again, I did promise this wouldn't be new age, but just sit for a moment with it and think, what is happening here? What am I trying to achieve? What emotion am I looking to either ramp up or amp up, or what emotion am I looking to suppress? Because when I used to drink, I would want to ramp and amp up my state. Sometimes I would want to kind of dampen it down if I felt a little low or whatever. And I think the key thing for this is to then write it down. So it can be on your phone, it can be in a notepad, or whatever you want, but write it down. Even if you're going to continue to drink, and if you just think, well, I'm going to drink anyway, okay, fine, drink anyway. And that's, one of the things with the program is, we allow you to keep drinking. You won't want to, but if I'm not here to tell you what to do, but you can write this down. And as soon as you start hitting these triggers day after day after day, you write them down, and there's going to be a pattern that you're going to see. Anyway, I think that'll probably do it for today. And if you like what you've seen today and you want to work with me, book a call below. We'll have a 30-minute conversation, no hard sell. If it doesn't work for you, that's fine. I'll send you away with some things that you can do, much like in this video. But that'll do it for today. Thank you very much, guys, and I will see you in the next one.